The massive ship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star, casting long shadows across the city below. Marcus stood on the rooftop of the hospital where he worked as a nurse, watching the impossible sight unfold before his eyes. The ship was silver and smooth, shaped like nothing human hands could ever create. It landed in the center of the city with a gentle hiss, and the world held its breath. Within minutes, soldiers surrounded the area, but they kept their distance. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. A ramp extended from the ship's side and something emerged. It was tall, easily 20 feet high, with scales that shimmered like dark emerald in the sunlight. The creature had wings folded against its back and eyes that glowed with ancient intelligence. It was a dragon or something very much like one. The world erupted in panic, but Marcus felt something different. He felt curiosity. The dragon walked through the empty streets, its massive claws clicking against the pavement. It seemed to be observing everything carefully, studying the buildings, the vehicles, the abandoned shops. After what felt like hours, the dragon's eyes fixed on the hospital where Marcus worked. It moved toward it with deliberate steps. Inside the hospital, chaos erupted. Doctors and nurses rushed to evacuate patients, but Marcus knew something the others didn't. He had worked in this hospital for 15 years, and he knew that on the third floor, there was a ward full of children who could not be moved quickly. Some were recovering from serious illnesses. Others were too fragile. If they were moved too fast, they would not survive. Marcus made a choice that would change everything. Instead of running, Marcus walked toward the dragon. His legs shook with fear, but his heart was calm. He had made a decision. The dragon stopped when it saw him, lowering its massive head to observe this small human. Marcus did not run. He did not scream. He simply stood there, looking up at the creature that could have crushed him with a single step. The dragon's eyes studied him for what felt like forever. Then it spoke, its voice like the sound of distant thunder mixed with the whisper of wind through ancient caves. "I am Valarak the Observer," it said. "I have come to study humanity before my people decide your fate. Your kind will either be allowed to join the greater universe, or you will be classified as too violent, too chaotic, too destructive to survive. I am here to witness the truth of what you are." Marcus swallowed hard but kept his voice steady. "Then observe this," he said. "There are children upstairs who need help. I need to protect them. That is what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We risk ourselves for others." Valarak tilted its great head. "Interesting. Show me." Marcus led the dragon into the hospital. The staff members who saw them coming froze in terror, but Marcus signaled them to stay calm. He took Valarak up the stairs to the children's ward. There, in small beds and cribs, lay dozens of sick and injured children. Some were sleeping. Others watched with wide, frightened eyes as the massive dragon entered the room. Instead of attacking, Valarak simply observed. It moved slowly between the beds, careful not to disturb anything with its wings or tail. A small girl named Emma, who was only 6 years old and recovering from surgery, reached out her tiny hand. She was too young to understand fear, too innocent to know danger. Her hand touched Valarak's scaled arm. The dragon did not move away. It allowed the child to touch it. Emma smiled, and in that moment, something changed in Valarak's ancient eyes. The dragon had witnessed humanity's most violent wars through its sensors. It had observed human cruelty, greed, and selfishness. But it had never witnessed this, the unconditional compassion of a sick child reaching out to a creature that could destroy her with ease. A boy named Thomas, who was 10 years old, spoke up. "Are you going to hurt us?" he asked quietly. "I do not know," Valarak answered honestly. "I came to judge your species, to determine if you deserve to exist." "Well," said Thomas with the simple wisdom of childhood, "my nurse, Marcus, risked his life to make sure we stayed safe. That's what good people do. We help each other. We're not all bad." Marcus watched as Valarak's expression shifted. The dragon moved to a window and looked out at the city below. For a long time it said nothing. When it finally spoke again, its voice was different, quieter, more thoughtful. "I have observed your wars," Valarak said. "I have studied your violence, your greed, your capacity for cruelty. But in this moment, I also observe your capacity for sacrifice. A stranger entered danger to protect children not his own. A sick child reached out with trust instead of fear. A young boy understood the meaning of kindness." Valarak turned back to face Marcus. "This is what I will report to my people. Humanity is complex. You are capable of great darkness but also of great light. You protect your young. You risk yourselves for strangers. You show courage not through weapons but through compassion." The dragon lowered its massive head, and in a gesture that would have seemed impossible moments before, it bowed, not in aggression but in respect. "Your species deserves a chance," Valorak said. "Your worth is not measured by your strength or your technology. It is measured by your heart. By your choice to protect rather than destroy. By your willingness to show kindness to a stranger." As news of what happened spread across the world, humanity had been given something precious. A chance. And it was all because one man chose to protect the vulnerable instead of choosing fear. The alien ship fell from the sky like a broken bird. James watched it happen from his small farm in the countryside, miles away from any city. The ship was massive, easily the size of a football stadium, and it crashed into the forest beyond the hills with a sound like thunder that shook the ground beneath his feet. James stood there for a moment, holding his shovel, wondering if he had really seen what he thought he saw. He was a simple man, 43 years old, who lived alone on his farm. He grew vegetables and kept a few chickens. He did not have a fancy education and he did not have much money. But he had a good heart. Without thinking too much about the danger, James put down his shovel and walked toward the forest. When he reached the crash site, he found a massive hole in the earth. The ship was smoking and broken. Parts of it were twisted metal. Other parts were made of strange materials that James could not recognize. He did not see any movement at first. Then from inside the wreckage he heard a sound. It was not a scream exactly, but something like pain mixed with confusion. James carefully climbed into the broken ship. Inside everything was dark and damaged. Wires hung from the ceiling like snakes. Strange liquids dripped from broken pipes. Then he saw it. A being unlike anything he had ever imagined. It was tall and thin, with skin that looked almost translucent like the skin of a newborn mouse. It had large eyes that glowed faintly blue. Its body was covered in injury. One of its arms was badly hurt, bent at an angle that made James wince just looking at it. The creature saw James and tried to move away, but it could not move very far. It was trapped under a piece of the ship's wall. The being made a sound that was almost like words, but James could not understand the language. Still, James understood fear. He understood pain. And he understood that this creature, no matter how alien it was suffering. "It is okay," James said gently, even though he knew the creature could not understand him. "I will help you." James spent the next hour carefully moving pieces of the broken ship away from the alien. It was hard work and he hurt his hands doing it, but he did not stop. The creature watched him the whole time, its blue eyes following James's movements. When James finally freed it, the alien fell to the ground, unable to stand. James picked up the creature carefully. It was lighter than he expected. Without thinking about what might happen, without worrying about whether it was safe, James carried the alien back to his farm. Over the next few days, James learned that the alien's name was something that sounded like Zhen, when James tried to pronounce it. Zhen came from a world far away and had been sent to Earth as a judge. Just like the dragon before, Zhen was supposed to observe humans and report back to its people about whether humanity deserved to survive or not. But now Zhen was stranded, injured, and completely dependent on a human farmer named James. James had a small guest room in his house. He made a bed for Zhen using soft blankets. He gave Zhen water and tried different foods until he found that Zhen could eat fruits and vegetables. He cleaned Zhen's injuries as best he could. And most importantly, James talked to Zhen. He told stories about his life, about his dreams, about why he chose to help a stranger. "I do not understand," Zhen said one evening. Its voice was strange and musical like wind chimes. "You risked your safety for me. I could have been dangerous. I could have hurt you. Why did you help me?" James thought about this carefully. "Because you were hurt," he said simply. "And because it was the right thing to do. We do not need to understand each other to help each other. Compassion does not need a reason." As the days passed, Zhen began to heal. James helped the alien move around the farm. He showed Zhen his chickens, his garden, his small but comfortable life. And slowly something changed in Zhen's heart. The alien began to understand what it meant to care about another being. To want to protect them. To feel joy when they were happy and sadness when they were hurt. One day a group of soldiers came to the farm. They had been searching for the crashed ship and had tracked it to James's property. They came with weapons and serious faces, ready to take Zhen by force. James stood in front of the alien, protecting it with his own body. "You cannot take my friend," James said firmly. "Zhen is injured and needs help. If you want to hurt Zhen, you will have to go through me first." The soldiers were shocked. They had expected to find fear and greed, humans trying to capture an alien for money or power. Instead, they found a farmer willing to die to protect someone from another world. Zhen came out and stood beside James. The alien was still weak, still healing, but it stood with courage. "This human showed me what your kind is truly capable of," Jin said to the soldiers, its voice steady and strong. "I came to judge humanity. I came ready to recommend that your species be destroyed. But I was wrong. Humans are capable of extraordinary compassion. This one risked everything for a stranger. This one asked for nothing in return. This is a species worthy of respect. This is a species that should live." Zhen was rescued that day but not taken away from James. Instead, arrangements were made for Zhen to stay and help build a bridge between worlds. A bridge built on the foundation of compassion that James had shown. Years later, when Zhen's people came to meet with humanity, the first thing they did was thank James. They said that one act of kindness had changed the course of history. One farmer's simple choice to help a suffering stranger had saved all of humanity. James never became famous. He never wanted to be. He simply went back to his farm and kept growing his vegetables. But now he had a friend from another world. And that friend never forgot the day that compassion made someone an ally instead of an enemy. The ships came without warning. They filled the sky like clouds, but these clouds were made of metal and fire. Commander Sarah stood in the military headquarters, watching the screens as the alien vessels descended toward every major city on Earth. The invasion had begun and humanity was not ready. The aliens called themselves the Kren. They were a conquering species that had taken over dozens of worlds. They did not come to negotiate or to trade. They came to conquer and to rule. Within the first hour of their arrival, they had destroyed 3 major cities and killed millions of people. The Kren broadcast a message to all humans: surrender immediately or face complete destruction. Sarah was a soldier. She had trained her entire life to protect her people. But she had never faced an enemy like this. The Kren ships were faster than any human aircraft. Their weapons were more powerful than anything humanity had ever created. On paper, the war was already lost before it had truly begun. In the underground bunker beneath the city, Sarah gathered her team. There was David, a brilliant engineer who had built weapon systems for decades. There was Lisa, a computer programmer who could hack into almost any system. There was Robert, a young soldier with quick thinking and faster reflexes. And there was Marcus, an old professor who had spent his life studying physics and alien languages. "We cannot win this with weapons," Sarah said bluntly. "Our guns cannot pierce their shields. Our missiles are too slow. If we fight them directly, we will lose." "Then what do you suggest?" asked David. "We cannot just surrender." Sarah looked at each of them. "We use something they do not expect. We use our minds. We use ingenuity. We use creativity. We find a way to turn their own technology against them." Marcus stepped forward. "I have been studying the Kren transmissions," he said. "Their technology is advanced, but it follows logical patterns. If we can understand their communication system, we might be able to send them false commands. We could make their ships attack each other." Lisa nodded quickly. "That could work. If I can access their network, I might be able to plant a virus. But I would need to get close to one of their ships." Robert volunteered immediately. "I can do that. I can get inside one of their landing vessels." For 3 days the team worked without rest. David built a special device that could transmit signals on the Kren frequency. Lisa wrote code that would confuse the alien computers. Marcus translated the Kren language patterns and figured out the command structure. Robert trained on how to move silently and hide from alien sensors. The plan was dangerous and probably would not work. But it was the only chance humanity had. Robert moved through the ruins of the city at night. The Kren had not fully occupied every area yet. They were still landing more ships and setting up their bases. Robert used the darkness and the rubble as cover. He carried Lisa's device hidden in his jacket. When he reached the landing site, Robert could see the Kren ship. It was smaller than the massive vessels in the sky, but still enormous by human standards. Guards stood at the entrance, but they were not expecting an attack from the ground. They were too confident in their superiority. Robert moved carefully. He had trained for this, but training could never truly prepare you for the real thing. His heart pounded in his chest as he approached the ship. One of the Kren guards turned and saw him. Robert did not hesitate. He ran forward with all his speed. The guard raised its weapon, but Robert was faster. He had spent his life being quick and clever. He dodged the energy blast and threw a small device at the guard. It was not a weapon. It was a flash bomb that David had created. A bright light filled the air, blinding the Kren temporarily. Robert ran into the ship. Behind him, he could hear more guards coming. His time was limited. Lisa had told him where to find the main computer terminal. He ran through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, his feet echoing against alien metal. He found the terminal and plugged in Lisa's device. An alarm started blaring immediately. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. Robert ran back the way he came, and he could hear the heavy footsteps of the Kren guards behind him. He burst out of the ship and sprinted away from the landing site. Energy blasts came close, so close he could feel the heat. But Robert was fast and he was clever. He knew the ruins of the city better than any alien ever could. He disappeared into the darkness, leaving the Kren confused and angry. Back in the bunker, Lisa watched her screens. The virus was spreading through the Kren network faster than she had expected. It was working. Commands started going wrong. In the sky, the Kren ships began to falter. Some of them started shooting at each other, their systems confused by the false commands. The chaos spread quickly. Within minutes, 3 Kren vessels collided in the atmosphere. Another began firing at its own landing ships. The Kren had built their technology on the assumption that they would never be challenged. They had never imagined that a smaller, weaker species could outthink them. Sarah coordinated human forces to attack while the Kren were confused. Without perfect communication and with their ships attacking each other, the alien forces were suddenly vulnerable. Humanity fought back with everything they had. The battle lasted for hours, but the outcome was no longer certain. For the first time, humans were winning. The Kren tried to regroup, but their systems were too damaged. Their commanders could not communicate properly. Their weapons were turning against them. By dawn, the Kren ships were retreating from Earth's orbit. They had come expecting easy victory. Instead, they had found a species that was clever, resourceful, and willing to fight with their minds as well as their weapons. Sarah stood with her team as they watched the Kren vessels disappear into space. David had tears on his face. Lisa was smiling despite her exhaustion. Robert had made it back to the bunker safely. Marcus was already thinking about how to improve their defenses for the next attack, because they all knew this was only the beginning. But on this day, humanity had proven something important. They had shown that sometimes, courage and ingenuity could overcome even the most powerful enemy. They had shown that thinking differently could be more powerful than superior weapons. And they had shown that when humans worked together, they could achieve the impossible. The world would remember this day as the day humanity learned to fight back. The rain fell hard on the streets of the city, making everything wet and cold. Daniel was walking home from his job at a repair shop when he saw something unusual lying on the ground near an old warehouse. At first he thought it was a pile of trash. Then he realized it was moving. Daniel stopped and looked closer. It was a being unlike anything he had ever seen. It had a body made of what looked like silver metal mixed with something organic like living tissue. It was badly damaged. Pieces of it were broken and scattered around. The being was not moving much, but Daniel could see that it was still alive. Its eyes, which were like glowing orbs of red light, were looking up at him with what seemed like fear and pain. Daniel knew he should keep walking. He knew that getting involved with something so strange and unknown could be dangerous. He had a family to think about. He had a job that paid barely enough to survive. He did not have time to help a mysterious alien creature. But Daniel had always been the kind of person who could not ignore suffering, no matter what form it took. "Can you hear me?" Daniel asked gently, kneeling down beside the injured being. The creature made a sound that was like mechanical grinding mixed with an animal's cry. It was clearly in great pain. Daniel looked at the being's injuries more carefully. It seemed like it had fallen from somewhere very high. Its body was cracked and broken in multiple places. Some parts of it were leaking a fluid that glowed faintly blue. Daniel could not leave it here. The rain was cold and getting colder. The warehouse was abandoned and dangerous. Without thinking about the risks, Daniel made a decision. He removed his coat and carefully wrapped it around the injured being. Then, with great effort, he helped it stand up. The creature was heavy, much heavier than it looked, but Daniel managed to support its weight. Slowly, carefully, he helped the being walk to a small shelter near the warehouse, a place where old metal containers were stacked. It was not warm, but at least it was dry and hidden from view. Daniel spent hours sitting with the creature that night. He did not have any medical supplies that would work on something so alien. He did not know what to feed it or how to help it heal. But he sat with it through the cold night, and sometimes he talked to it just to make sure it knew it was not alone. By morning, the creature seemed a little better. Its eyes were brighter. It had stopped making sounds of pain. Daniel went to work, but he could not stop thinking about the injured being. During his lunch break, he went to a store and bought supplies. He got water in bottles. He got different kinds of fruit and vegetables, not knowing what the creature could eat. He got bandages and medical tape, even though he knew they probably would not work on alien skin. Over the next week, Daniel visited the shelter every day. He brought food and water. He talked to the creature about his life, about his work, about his dreams. The being did not speak in a way Daniel could understand at first, but slowly, it began to make different sounds. Eventually, Daniel realized the creature was learning his language by listening to him talk. "Why?" the creature finally asked one day, its voice like wine through metal pipes. "Why do you help me? I'm not your kind. I could be dangerous." Daniel thought about this question carefully. "Because you were hurt," he said simply. "And because kindness is not something I do only for people like me. Kindness is something I do because it is right. Because suffering matters no matter what form it takes." The creature's red eyes glowed brighter, as if it was processing this information. "I am called Vex," it said. "I am a scout. My ship crashed and I was sent to observe your world before my people decide whether to invade or not. I was supposed to study you and report back." Daniel's heart sank a little. "Your people are planning to invade Earth?" "They were," Vex said. "But now I do not know. I have been studying humans through my observations, and they seemed like a violent and selfish species. But you showed me something different. You risked your safety for a stranger. You asked for nothing in return. You showed me compassion. This is not what I expected to find." Over the next few weeks, Vex healed. Daniel's kindness and care, combined with the creature's own biological ability to repair itself, slowly mended the injuries. As Vex recovered, it began to understand humanity better. Daniel introduced the creature to his friends. They were shocked at first, but they also showed kindness to Vex. They brought food. They helped care for the wounded being. They asked questions and listened to Vex's stories about its own world. Then one day Vex received a signal. Its people were coming to Earth. The scout ship had been silent for weeks, and now the mother ship was arriving to investigate. Vex could have hidden and saved itself. Instead, Vex made a choice. When the massive alien vessel arrived in Earth's orbit, the world was terrified. But Vex sent a signal back to its people. In that signal, Vex told them everything. Vex told them about Daniel and his kindness. Vex told them about a species that cared for a stranger despite fear and risk. Vex told them that humans were worthy of respect and peace, not invasion. The alien commander who received the signal was confused. "This does not match your initial observations," the commander said. "You reported humans to be dangerous and selfish." "I was wrong," Vex said. "I judged based on limited information. But then I experienced true kindness. I experienced compassion with no expectation of reward. That changed everything. Humanity deserves our friendship, not our weapons." The aliens debated for hours. They studied Vex's reports. They watched transmissions of humans helping each other, protecting each other, showing compassion. And slowly their decision changed. Instead of sending weapons, they sent an invitation for peaceful contact. Daniel never expected that his simple act of kindness would change the fate of his entire species. He had only done what felt right in that moment. He had helped a suffering stranger. And in doing so, he had shown the universe what humans were truly capable of. Years later, when humans and the alien species became friends and trading partners, they would often tell the story of how it all began. They would tell the story of Daniel and Vex, and how one act of unexpected kindness had changed the course of history. They would tell it as a reminder that sometimes, the smallest gesture of compassion can have the biggest consequences. Daniel continued his quiet life, fixing things in his shop. But now, when people asked him about the aliens, he would simply smile and say that he had just done what anyone should do. He had helped someone in need. And that was enough.